Hey, what's up, guys? So let's talk about milestones, like kids hitting their milestones, and then developmental delays that can occur. So as parents, you probably are becoming very aware as you study what to expect during parenthood, talking about their leaps, their milestones, when they're getting fussy, why, like what's going on with my kid, are they progressing right, are they not progressing right? These are all huge questions that plague parents and stress you out like crazy because you don't know, what's normal, what's not normal. And so what I want to talk about is a lot of times what's happening is kids they're missing their milestones. And sometimes what'll happen is they'll skip it. So a milestone is something like crawling, or a baby or an infant when they're starting to roll over. What is the appropriate amount of time to expect that they should do something? And then, is it normal or is it not normal? Usually if they're not meeting their milestones or they're not rolling, as long as they are not a failure to thrive, then doctors or pediatricians just kind of go, okay, well they'll just grow out of it. At some point it'll be all right. Maybe if it's severe, they'll send them to a therapist, but usually there's not a whole lot that can be done as long as there's not any type of like malnourishment or, like I said, failure to thrive syndrome. So it kind of leaves people wondering, parents nowadays are wondering, well, what do I do if they're meeting their milestones, they're not? Is this just something that I have to, accept that maybe my kid's going to be behind? And that is pretty much most people's options, is to just deal with it. Now, that's couldn't be further from the truth on how this, when you understand how this starts to occur. And I'm not again, this is not my major area of expertise, so I just want to let you know that there is tons and tons of new phenomenal research that's coming out in this area all the time. I do have a background, and Dr. Natalie as well has a background in childhood developmental disorders. So we have an understanding of this a little bit more than the average chiropractor. And it comes down to milestones are how their brain is developing. So your child, as they're growing, they're literally forming their brain, right? When you walk around, you see kids do stupid things. You're like, oh my gosh, they don't have a brain yet. That's what my dad grew up telling me. He's like, oh, you're not, until you're 25, you can't really make a good decision because your brain isn't fully formed. Well, there's some truth to that. Now, children, even more so, because when a newborn is born, they really they're running kind of primarily off of that reptilian brain of primitive reflexes. So when they brush their cheek, they'll turn to grab the nipple. When you push against here, they have the rooting reflex where they stick out. So their lips stick out rather. And then also, like when you stroke up their back, they twist, and they do that in order to basically create stimulation that actually builds their brain, because they can't think to say, oh, turn my head and do this. In fact, they just have to react to their environment, which is why you have to have, it's so important for babies to be constantly stimulated and held and nurtured and moved. And if a child is held in isolation, they've seen that that's just very, 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 very bad. They have to be having constant contact, especially at a young age. So what can happen is the brain can start to get built abnormally. And when I say abnormally, it means that you have two halves of your brain that are split, right? You got your right side and your left side. The left side of your brain controls the right half of the body, and the right half of the brain controls the left half of the body. So when your child is moving, things are being activated and your brain is being built in this kind of diagonal or crossways ability. And what happens sometimes is that things can get stimulated abnormally. So one side of the brain progresses faster at a faster rate than others. When that happens, it'll actually can create developmental delays where either a milestone is skipped or it is just severely delayed because they're not ready for it, because they haven't had enough of their body building their brain yet through all the stimulation. So what is so cool is that, there's all sorts of different, therapies and stuff you can do, cross-crawl exercises to make sure, like if, for instance, your child is walking before they start to crawl, that can actually have implications on things like ADHD in the future. There's some good research and literature to show the importance of following these milestones as is, kind of on a normal progression or normal schedule. So there's certain exercises you can kind of force your kids into. However, one of the easiest things that you can do is to make sure that their brain and their body is connected, meaning that the signals that have to go from the brain to the body and the body back to the brain, they do so through the spine and the spinal cord, and then through all the various nerves. A lot of times what happens is in adults and children especially, kids are always falling down, bumping. The birth process can be traumatic, which can cause pinching and twisting on the upper bones in the neck. And what that can do is that can change the proper signaling from the brain to the body and vice versa. Now what that'll do is every time that the child is, say, stimulating their left side, those signals are not going to get to the right side of the brain, and therefore they're not going to build that right side of the brain appropriately. And now what can happen is you can start to get an imbalance. So even though they're properly getting stimulated, even with the therapy or the exercise or just normal childhood movements, that's not, their brain isn't getting built. And all of a sudden now that delay can start to get kicked in. And so we see, if it's early and caught early, it can be corrected early. Sometimes we'll even see delays that progress all the way into adulthood, and they still have primitive reflexes that are supposed to be gone by the time that they're 6 months old to a year old, and they're still there even as an adult. And that can lead to anxiety, depression, stress syndromes like fibromyalgia, just a lot of different issues that plague people, and especially in childhood, ADHD. It's even linked to brain chemistry changes that are found in autism. So there's just a whole lot of different things that we want to make sure, and sensory processing is a big one too. That falls into that spectrum of disorders there. And so when we were able to reconnect the brain to the body through specific gentle chiropractic care, what that does is that allows your body to, the normal sensations from the outside, to build the brain the way that it was intended. And now what happens is with those proper signals, the child is able to make the milestones appropriately, or if they've missed some, they can make up for it, and they can rebuild their brain the way that it's supposed to be built, so that when they become an adult, when they hit 25 and they're able to make all their life choices, hopefully even before then, now they're able to process without having any of the issues of developmental delays kicking in and basically thwarting their ability to be a productive adult in society. So I hope that gives you a little bit more information. I really enjoyed talking about this, and this topic is pretty cool. I think it's fascinating how the brain is developed during childhood. So if you have any questions, reach out and comment or send us a message, because I'd be happy to go into more explanation of this if you guys want more of that. But either way, I recommend that you pass this information along, and if your child is, if you're noticing they have issues with delays, or really they haven't been checked to see if their brain is connected up to their body, bring them in, get them checked out by a neurologically based chiropractor, so that you can be sure that they have the best chances of succeeding in life. So I hope you guys have an awesome day. This is Dr. Lee Horing with Ignite Chiropractic. I'll talk to you soon.